Also, I mean harassing in the nicest way. I like it when people leave comments. Please leave a comment below. Hi, my name is Sam Johnson and I'm a voice teacher. Today I'll be reacting to and analyzing Florence and the Machine performing Cosmic Love. So far, she's starting on that A. That's right on a pop female singer's first bridge. I think that it's good to be able to kind of turn over at the D, but for pretty much all pop singers, like there's some sort of event that happens at that A area. So you hear that release happen in her voice, and then she comes down, and then it becomes a little bit chestier.
I screamed aloud.
I don't know if she's going into a falsetto or if it's more of a head voice, but it's a softer sound. I would feel it in the head. I think most of my students would feel that in the head, but the more that you can start going away from that and just saying, well, it sounds softer, cool. Let's aim for that, and then whatever the body feels like as a result is just the result of it, I think is a good way to think about the voice, especially at a high level, once you already know what a bunch of these things feel like. And she is singing at that high level. So I don't think that she's thinking, okay, I'm going to start this in my head. I think she's thinking, I'm going to start this quiet. I'm going to start this kind of breathy. And then she has all of these big swells in her voice where it goes between that breathier kind of sound that she just used on those sounds. And then she grows. She gets louder. She gets more chesty, whatever you want to call it. But it happens in a really smooth way, which is impressive. I think that she does, like, it would be fair to say that she's experimenting with that flippy sensation, which would imply more disconnection, but because she then counters it with going with these smooth lines from a high quiet note like that down to a more connected sounding note, that shows me like there is that connection. The vocal folds still have a little bit of hold on, of chord closure. It's not completely letting go into ligamentous. Or if it is, she's really skilled at letting it kind of blend back down. So the fact that she's going between both styles of it, of like the abrupt flips and then the really gentle blending, that's good stuff. It's really skilled singing. And sometimes when I've listened to Florence, and I haven't listened to her a lot for the last few years, but it sounds so energetic, almost to the point of reckless. But with this so far, I'm hearing just a really well-controlled voice where she's knowing the limits of her voice. She's knowing how loud she is comfortable to be able to go so far, but she also isn't going very high yet. So all of the range that she's been singing in so far, you can kind of get away with those kind of behaviors, like that reckless abandon, just throwing it all out there, where as you get a little bit higher, sometimes those behaviors start to bite you in the butt. But, you know, it sounds controlled enough that I still have hope that as she goes to higher notes that it won't be devastating. I also love her vowels so far. It's just very ba, 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 ba. She's not opening her mouth super wide. She's not opening it super tall, but she is getting some nice drop with all of it. So it's kind of like a modified speech. If you're just saying these words, a lot of times people would say it more closed, but she's just letting everything kind of be right here. And I think that's a really good mouth position for singing, especially in this middle range.
But then it's
Yeah, she's really good at playing with just that flip idea. It's not, I wouldn't call it a yodel, but that's what a yodel is based on, is just going between that heavier mechanism and that light mechanism and just bouncing back really quickly, which I think it can be really healthy to do it well like she's doing, because if you're always having to go back to that really light one, sometimes it's harder to overcompress on the heavier one. So now we've gotten up to the C5, which is starting to get into that area that you need to have some sort of technique in order to sing full voice well up there. It starts getting really difficult to just yell higher than the C, C sharp, D, and it still doesn't sound like a full yell. It sounds technique to me.
No dawn, no day. I'm always in this
Pretty guitar.
twilight, in the shadow of your heart.
I wish I could have seen her mouth there.
The stars from my eyes, and then I made a map.
So all of that was on the same pitch, da, 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 on that G, and then she started it kind of in that more disconnected place, but then halfway through, I made a map, she kind of grew into that bigger place. So I think it's such an important thing to be able to do. I think it's really healthy singing. Honestly, like, I think I've been a little bit biased toward Florence just because it does sound so huge in some of these recordings, and I haven't given enough time spent watching her or listening to her live stuff to where I like it. But I've always just been on the edge of like, I'm not sure if that's sustainable, but the sounds that I'm hearing so far in this recording are very, very healthy sounds. And it's really pleasant. Like I like that kind of abrasive, just loud, big voice, especially in pop music. Like there aren't very many big voice people in pop music anymore, and she's definitely one of them. I've just always had that little hesitation, and I think that's unfair of me. My mind is being changed a little right now.
I knew that somehow I could find my way back. Then I heard your heart beating. You were in the darkness too.
Yeah, even when she's getting louder, and I know she didn't right there, I'm just thinking about it again, I still hear a lot of air moving through. It doesn't sound like it's too pressed, and that's a good sign, because you can get massive sounds while having a lot of pressure. You just need to keep the air moving through so it doesn't get pressed. And that's, I think, a thing that people are scared of a lot of times, because they hear people like me say, we don't want to sing with strain, we don't want to sing with too much pressure. They kind of overlook for it in their own voice, because there's a minimum level of pressure that we need. And yes, we don't want to sing in a strained way. We don't want to use these extrinsic muscles to start trying to make the vocal mechanism work differently. But there is a necessary pressure in order to sing a full voice sound, and you can get that pressure while keeping air flowing through. And I think that that's what she's doing. So I just want to reiterate it, because I know that I can kind of sound harsh when I say these things sometimes, but like, I'm a big fan of her right now. Like I can be critical while still liking someone's musical ability and just them as a person, because ultimately that's what a lot of this is, right? Is we're trying to just be vulnerable in front of cameras and use the technique in order to allow that vulnerability to have a voice. But I think she's doing that really, really well.
So I stayed in the darkness with you. And the stars, the moon,
Yeah, you hear a lot of that flow.
have all been blown out. You left me in the dark. No dawn, no day. I'm always in this.
You also haven't heard any glottal onsets, which there's nothing wrong with glottal onsets inherently. If there was, then basically everyone who speaks German would have vocal problems, and that's just not the case. But A lot of times when people use glottal onsets, it's partnered with constriction, with strain. She's not using any of those. She's just not even leaving it up to a chance of that. You're hearing neutral onsets. You're hearing the lyrics actually help her with these onsets, where most of the lyrics at the beginning of words or at the beginning of phrases, they start with a consonant, and usually it's like a glide, an N or a W, something that just helps get onto that really smoothly. When she doesn't start with those, you're hearing a lot more of the vocal fry onset, or just that last time we heard a little bit of an aspirate, but it didn't lead to a super breathy sound. And that's possible, and I think that can be really useful. I mean, obviously, we need to be able to use aspirate onsets, especially when we're saying an H at the beginning of a word. Ha, ha. But I think it's important to make sure that you're not letting that onset completely change how you use the voice when it's on vowels. So if you're starting with that breath, with the aspirate, ha, it's still ending up with that more clear sound. It doesn't always have to go ah. If you compulsively let it go ah, and you can't do it the other way, you need to work on that. You need to have both available to you so that you can actually tell the story. Her voice just sounds like her voice, and like regardless of the onset that she's using, it gets to that really clear, flowy yet big sound.
In the shadow of your heart.
Like right there, there's another example of that H. It just doesn't look like she's working hard. And that's a really good sign that everything is feeling good. If it doesn't manifest in like physicality, looking like you're working really hard and you're pressing and you're squeezing your abs really tight and you're opening your mouth really wide and it's just a lot of effort, usually it's going to feel pretty good. Some people get really good at like hiding the amount of effort that they're doing, but there's nothing in her physicality that implies, oh yeah, this is a lot of hard work for her. That said, like we're also not seeing her go much higher than the C, which I think that she's capable of doing it. And the way all of these things are setting her up so that if she were to go higher in this piece, that it would be successful as long as she doesn't over modify anything or over change anything. If she just kind of keeps the same nice balance that she's doing, just lets it move up into her head a little bit more and drops her jaw just a teeny bit more, it should be really successful as she goes to those higher ones.
In the shadow of your heart.
On that ha, like you hear a little bit of O in that. It's a rounder sound, and that comes from rounding her lips, but it also comes from just keeping this open feeling in your throat. So ho versus ha. Okay, I think that one of the reasons that I was thinking that it was a little bit less balanced on previous listens is because of the vibrato. Like having that slightly faster, that's not typical of like what a vibrato of a really well balanced singer sounds like. That said, typical doesn't, like not everything needs to be typical to be healthy or to be a good sound. And I think it sounds good, but I do think that that played in of like, well, that just sounds a little bit different from what I'm used to. And sometimes when we hear that, we hear just like those little, it just sounds different. It doesn't sound as balanced with that. But I don't know if it is like a true oscillatory vibrato that like you'd get just naturally, or if it is kind of just an effect that she's putting on, or if she's exaggerating the true vibrato, because it still sounded pretty easy and like onsetting into it, it doesn't sound pressed, it doesn't sound too breathy. Ultimately, that's the more valuable thing to kind of watch for is, does it sound like we've got too much pressure or too much flow? And with her, I don't really hear either. I think it sounds really good in terms of pressure and flow. Even when she was on that vibrato part, it still sounded pretty even in terms of pressure and flow. The harp is so cool. Shouts out to the instrumentalists for making this. I think acoustic music sometimes gets a bad rep because it doesn't have like a really strong beat, but the way that they're playing this, it's got this really strong groove all the way through, and it's a more full sound than I think you hear with a lot of strictly acoustic music. And it's because of the percussive nature of the harp. That was really good. I like that a lot. I've been scared to recommend Florence songs to a lot of students because I think that they're hard to sing a lot of times. This one, I think, is one that I could recommend for people to work on. It's got a lot of things that I think benefit people learning how to sing at any level, where it's got these long phrases. It goes kind of high, just high enough that like you've got to kind of know what you're working on, but it doesn't go so high that it's out of reach for a lot of beginning students. With all of these held notes, it's very nice vowel shapes. So if we listen to her as an example, I think people would be more likely to imitate some of those vowel shapes, which are really healthy. I don't hear her overbearing on anything. I think that was a really great performance, and I think it's just a good song. I like Florence and the Machine. I'm not sure why I stopped listening to them as much, because like around this time I actually was listening to them a fair amount. And I don't know what changed. It's weird how that happens, that these bands that you really like, you just kind of forget about in certain ways. So thanks for everyone who kept harassing me to review her, because I think I'm going to go listen to a little more Florence and the Machine now. Also, I mean harassing in the nicest way. I like it when people leave comments. Please leave a comment below. Thank you for watching this video. Just don't bully me. If you insult me about not reacting to the people, I'm not gonna like actively try to go find the people that you're insulting me for not doing it. But we do check the comments, so thank you for leaving the comments.